Welcome to Victory Life Today with Al and Angie Buhrke. A place to connect, to grow, and to cultivate your faith in Christ. Together, we'll learn how to stand in victory each and every day. Live a life set ablaze by faith, filled with purpose. Live life above your circumstance.
Welcome to Victory Life Today. I'm Al Buhrke.
And I'm Angie Buhrke. Thanks so much for joining us today. We are continuing on anxiety, talking about anxiety and stress and how awful it is and how so many people are just so paralyzed by it. But the point of this series is to make you know that you don't have to just cope with any anxiety that you might have, that you can actually be free from it. And that is the truth. I am just not saying words that I made up. God says you could be free from anxiety totally and live in the peace of God, the peace of God Himself, His peace that is inside of you. You know, if you are born again, and I'm hoping you are, then Jesus is living inside of you, and so is His peace. You get everything when you get Jesus. And so if you're not walking in the peace of God, then something's wrong. And it's not that God's holding back. He already gave it to you. So we're going to find out why you're anxious in one part of your life, or maybe all areas of your life, or just living in fear. We're going to go over everything. We're going to talk today, Al, about the different types of anxiety. And we're going to focus on, I think, 3 or 4 of them. And we're just going to go through them quickly, give some examples. And there's many more than I think what we're going to talk about today, but let's go ahead and
one of the things we do here at Victory Life is we try to disciple the believer. We're not evangelistic, so we're going to help you and teach you things about how to not be full of anxiety.
And let me tell you this: even if you're not a Christian, you should be a Christian. But this helps anyone and everyone. I mean, non-believers, believers, you can all glean from this and be free.
All right, I'm going to read the definition right now of anxiety. A state of apprehension, uncertainty, and fear resulting from the anticipation of a realistic or fantasized threatening event or situation, often impairing physical and psychological functioning. And that's a dictionary definition. There's many types of anxiety. There's just the general normal anxiety, panic anxiety, social anxiety, obsessive compulsive disorder, that's just a few.
Yeah, and those 4 I think we'll go over, and we'll give them some statistics and everything. The obsessive compulsive disorder is known as OCD. You know, you hear that a lot too. So there are different types of anxiety, and there are some that I think are worse than others. Like general anxiety just goes and comes and goes, but we'll see. There are many different types of phobias also, and a phobia is related to something specific. So that gets a little bit deeper too, and it almost can paralyze a person. It really can.
Any of these can.
So let me share what a phobia is. It's a persistent, abnormal, and irrational fear of a specific thing or situation that compels one to avoid it. So I want you to think in your life, what are the things that you avoid because you are anxious about it? It's despite the awareness and reassurance that it's not dangerous. So you know deep down that it's really not dangerous, and it's kind of like a weird thing, but at the same time you're deathly afraid of it enough to avoid it, even though you know that it's not dangerous. This to me is the most debilitating kind of anxiety, because it can stretch across the board for anything. Because it's irrational, Al, it could attach itself, go anywhere and attach itself to anything or any event in our lives all the time. This can paralyze it because because it could be anything. So, you know, and if it could be anything, it could be everything. And that's the scary part. That's what we don't want to happen. And, you know, I'm going to use some examples, and I like to use the example of just the plain old elevator, okay? Because there are many, many people who are deathly afraid of going onto an elevator, and it causes anxiety in these people. And so what they do is, instead of getting in the elevator to go to the 10th floor, they will walk up 10 flights of stairs and say they want to do it because it's good exercise. So we want to be real here, and we want you to be honest with yourself if you're making an excuse based on your fear rather than based on truth. Do you really want the exercise, or are you just doing the stairs because you're afraid of an elevator? I remember a funny story. I always love to tell this story. When we were in an elevator, and I mean, I don't care for elevators either, but I go on them every time and never avoid it. But you always think, and let me tell you why. Al, when I was a child, my uncle worked for the city of New York, and he was in an elevator shaft, and he fell 18 stories. He lived, but he lived with such pain in all of his life. All of his life. He made the newspapers. I mean, it was just a big deal.
It's amazing.
And do you know, absolutely it was. I mean, he broke almost every bone in his body.
Sure.
It was awful. And I loved this man. He was just awesome. And so I guess that stuck in the back of my mind. So every once in a while when I go on an elevator, you think, oh, and then I heard another story, terrible, just recently, it was in the news about somebody that got caught in between. So it was really weird. And, so we're in this elevator, and Al and I are just standing there, and I'm being a big girl, and we're not saying anything. And so the elevator stops, you can feel it, and the doors do not open. And we're looking, we're not saying a word, we're standing side by side. We're the only two in the elevator, and the doors don't open. So I go, okay, Al, they're not opening, Al, like it's his fault. Al, they're not opening. I think you need to call downstairs. And he goes, well, let's wait a second. And then it didn't open. And I said, just call, get your cell phone out and call. So he's getting his cell phone out, and we hear giggling behind us. We turn around, and the back doors had opened, and we didn't know it. And there were people behind us just laughing and giggling. I mean, they thought it was kind of cute, And I thought it was really funny. And I just wanted to share that because but it has nothing to do with the anxiety thing, except that we were starting to get anxious. And it was really funny because it's exactly what people go through all the time. But it was a funny story.
That's called back door of the elevator anxiety. What that is. I feel like saying, who opens up the back? Why did this thing not open the right way?
Oh, they were laughing at us. They thought it was so funny.
But another example of this is people driving over a bridge. They freak out driving over a bridge. Yes. And they know that it's solid. The bridge isn't going anywhere, really. You know what I mean?
Although the one in our town went just a piece of concrete fell from the bottom. But, by the time they find out about it, it's very early on, and things can always get fixed.
I know they fixed it. But anyway,
they know it won't collapse. In other words, they're on a bridge. They know this bridge is big and broad and strong.
How often do bridges collapse?
Right. And they really know. That's what the saying, the phobia, is like you really know that it's not dangerous, but you're afraid of it anyway.
But it's like, well, what if it does go down? So phobias can extend to anything and everything, really.
Absolutely.
This will suck the life right out of you everywhere you turn, because like going over the bridge, I can't go over the bridge. Everywhere you turn, you're watching and looking for something that might create danger for you. Yes. You're always on the edge. Self-protection mode due to what?
Peace.
Never. No peace, ever. You can see them, the way they operate. They move from one fear thing to another.
Right.
In other words, they're afraid to go over the bridge, so they go around. And then when they get there, they move on to some other fear.
Yes, and you were just about to say that's a self-protection mode that people put themselves in, and it's all due to what if.
It's the what ifs are major.
Yes.
And I really do believe the devil helps us out in this. The devil wants to paralyze you, you know what I mean? So the whole thing with the devil is he can't stop you from getting saved. And he can't stop you from doing God's will. But what he does is he drops these bombs. What if this happens? And it paralyzes you, and you miss out on all the blessings that God has for you, and you miss out on fulfilling God's plan and will for you because you're so busy with the what ifs.
Yes.
And I know the devil years back, the church was so concerned. Everybody was, if you did anything, that was sin. And they were so focused on everybody was a sinner. No one did God's plan with their life. They were so busy concerned about that. And it's the same thing, but, anyway, phobias actually are controlling us. I remember many years ago, the Lord said this to me. He said, do not let your circumstances control you. You control your circumstances. So when something happens, I have to sit back and say, no, I'm not taking it. I am going to do this or that. Right. We got to stay in control. You know, you think taking the long way rather than going like around the bridge is actually being controlled, but you're not.
It's actually like you're in control. I'm in control.
You think you are, but you're really not.
Right. It's controlling you because it's actually making you go the long way. Wow. Yeah, we don't realize that.
You know, I always say to fight this is take your fears head on. If you're afraid of an elevator, get in even if it's one flight, get in the elevator and take it. In other words,
that's very true. But I really do think, Al, that this, and I'm glad you brought that up because I really do think that this is why people don't go to God with this, because they think he's going to say, get on the elevator on day one. And I don't think he is. Eventually he might say that, but God is gentle and God is easy and God knows your fears more than you do. Now, maybe on the first day he might ask you to, but I don't know. I don't think so. I think he works with you. But what Al's saying, normally, really, you just need to face your fear. Get on, get it on.
God would do it this way. If you were walking up the steps, God would say, why are you walking up the steps?
That's good.
That's the way God does this. He leads you with questions. And you answer the question, well, you know, this is for my health and I want to have health. Is that really why you're walking up the stairs?
So good.
And then you're like, well, the reality is I'm afraid of the elevator. And then God would say something like, well, why are you afraid of the elevator? Everybody else seemed to be going up down here all day. You know what I mean? That's the way God does this. He always, when God starts asking me questions, I'm like, uh-oh, he's got something he wants to show me.
Yeah.
And that's how he does it.
That's very good. And that's a perfect example of how God would work in this.
That's how, because he wouldn't force you. You up the steps all day. He's not going to say, you better get in that elevator. I'm going to whop you upside the neck. He will never say that.
He is the best coach.
He is awesome.
You know, that's what coaches do.
That's what a coach does.
They let you see it.
They bring you to the point where you see it.
Yeah.
And that's the way God does. He's really for us. He's like a coach on the sideline saying, come on, you can do this.
Yeah, that's right. That's so good. Well, let's go over some facts about anxiety. And first of all, we're going to talk about the GAD, General Anxiety Disorder, affects 6.8 million adults in the U.S. Now, this is like the fleeting kind of anxiety, comes and goes based on the circumstance, based on a certain event. Okay, an example would be if you're feeling anxious before you go on a roller coaster, and you get on that roller coaster and you do the drill and you're anxious and stressed out. And the minute you get off, you're fine. Everything just comes back to normal. Or you hear a noise at night, in the middle of the night in your home, and it brings a sense of anxiety. I remember this past fall in North Carolina, it was in the middle of the night. It was like 2 a.m. and I heard an owl, and sometimes we get owls right on the top or in the trees or whatever. He was out. He was so loud, like that. Go ahead, give us an owl.
The hoo.
Yeah. He talks to them.
I talk, anyway, owl talk.
It woke me up in the middle of the night, and do you know it was so loud? Our living room is right in the back of backs up to our bedroom. I got up, and my heart was racing, coming out of my chest, because I really thought I went out of the bedroom into the living room, and I honestly thought I was going to see that owl sitting on my couch. That's how close and how real it was. And I was doing this all to myself, right? I mean, normally I wake him up, but I said, no, I'm gonna go. And I didn't turn a light on or anything because I didn't want the thing to start flying or whatever. I really thought I was sitting, but the minute I turned the corner and realized it was coming from the chimney, from the fireplace, everything just relaxed, and I went back to sleep to his music because it was coming from, right on the back wall. But anyway, that's a fleeting kind of anxiety. That's almost normal. Everybody goes through those things.
Well, it would be normal, sort of like, well, what am I hearing and why and where? So that's not,
That's normal. That's normal. And what about, if you're going to make a speech? Public speaking is really the number one fear, as far as I know.
Well, they say that, they have asked people, what is your number one fear? Fear of death.
Yeah.
Fear and fear of public speaking was greater than the fear of death.
Yes, and we're going to get into that in a little while about why that's the number one fear. I remember not recently, it was about 6 months ago, I guess, yeah. I had to go to the dentist, and I never liked dentists. I mean, not personally. I don't think anybody really enjoys going to a dentist, but I remember I had to have something done, and like days before my appointment, I started thinking about it. I started dwelling on it. I became so incredibly anxious that by the time I went to the dentist, I was like a wreck over nothing. Okay. And of course, when they take your blood pressure, it's a little bit high now because I was thinking about the whole thing, and then once it was over and I walked out, I was like a completely different person. These are just general, normal anxieties that come and go. And I got to share these stories because they're funny.
Sure.
Al, do you remember when I was dating you?
Oh, yeah.
And you had a bird, a sweet little parakeet. A really
he was
cute
ferocious.
parakeet.
He was that big.
Then again, because I was a child, when I was a child, I was in my aunt's home, and I didn't even know she had a bird, and I was standing there, and this big, giant bird it wasn't a parakeet, it was big, just flew right by me and just scared I just got so scared as a child. So I never liked birds. I loved looking at them, loved listening to them, but I really never liked them flying around me. Okay, and so I go to his house. They have a parakeet, and they knew every time I went that they had to put it in the cage. So I went this one day, and I said to his sister and mom, "Is the bird in the cage?" And they said, "Yes." Well, they lied. Okay, so I was in the kitchen with Al and his mom and sister, and we're all talking, and that bird comes flying through the kitchen. I thought it was horrible. I screamed and I ran like I never ran before into the side laundry room, and I shut the door tight. And then I hear tweet, 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 tweet. Behind me, the bird flew in with me, and I didn't know, and I heard them laughing on the other side, you and your mom and your sister, and I quick opened that door and I ran out, and it was so silly because it was just a bird, but I just don't like birds flying around me, and that was another form of anxiety. It's just
unfounded.
Happens.
He's a parakeet. He weighs a half an ounce.
But that's not what we're here for.
Well, you know what I mean? But what I'm saying
true.
is, this is
He's
what a lot.
He's not going to hurt me.
It's not going to hurt you. A lot of these things are unfounded.
Guess what, Al? That's that phobia. I know that bird's not going to hurt me.
What's he going to do?
That's exactly a good example. I know that bird's not going to hurt me. Right. But anyway, let's get on to the next thing.
Next one is a panic disorder, and that affects about 6 million adults is crazy in the U.S. Yeah. And this is a Mayo Clinic definition I'm going to give you right now. A panic attack is a sudden episode of intense fear that triggers severe physical reactions when there is no real danger or apparent cause. Panic attacks can be very frightening. When panic attacks occur, you might think you're losing control, having a heart attack, or even dying. Many people have just 1 or 2 panic attacks in their lifetimes, and the problem goes away. Perhaps when a stressful situation ends, but if you're in a reoccurrent, unexpected panic attacks all the time, if this is happening, and spent long periods of constant fear of another attack, you may have a condition called panic disorder. But there is something actually causing it.
That's
really.
right.
It's being caused by something.
That's right. Because people would say to me, well, it's a panic attack, and there's no reason whatsoever why this should have come on me. But yes, there is, and this is what we're going to do. When you find the problem, you find the solution. It's right there in God's Word. I remember I was with this young girl in like a Target or Walmart, I don't know, and she was absolutely fine. We were looking at all kitchen things, and we were, oh, wouldn't you like this? This is awesome. This is that. All of a sudden, she looked at me and she said, "I'm going to have to go sit over there for a minute." And I said, "Well, what's the matter?" And she said, I'm beginning to have a panic attack. Now, this girl
Over
was
what? Walmart?
She was in complete control. She's had them many, many times before. And she just walked very slowly and sat near the front door. And of course, I watched her from far away. And after 20 minutes, she was fine. And she was fine for the rest of the day. But what caused her body to go into panic? And that's what we are going to talk about. Because your body gets used to certain things, certain fears, certain worries, and then it starts acting that way, whether it wants to or not. Or you're afraid it's going to come again.
That's just what I mean.
Yes. So anyway, okay, let's go over one more. It's social anxiety disorder, and this is a biggie. This is the fear of people.
Fear of man. The Bible calls it the fear of man.
Fear of people, fear of man. That's right. Social anxiety disorder is fear of being judged. There you go. You're once again not in control. You are in control of others' opinions about you. And I'm going to read this. Now, I know somebody that she was anxious most of her growing up in her teenage years, and she didn't have many friends or whatever. And then she went on to college, and she got in front of a class, and she had to speak, public speaking, got on stage, and she ruined the entire speech. She fumbled, and she choked, and she stuttered, and she really, in her opinion, made a complete fool of herself. But she went up there afraid. She went up there thinking,
I'm going to screw this up.
Really, she did, because it was already in her. You know, this shut this girl down for years. She hardly came out of her room. She never went anywhere. She never talked on the phone. No social life. Not even social media. You know, that's kind of a way to hide and still communicate. And she didn't even do that. And eventually she turned to, it's so sad, because eventually, to ease her pain, she turned to illegal drugs to drown those fears. So, you know, we want to catch this at the onset so that we don't have to go down, spiral down to that, where these kids are just suffering so much.
You'll spiral down, because what the devil does is he's always looking for a weak point. And when something like this happens to you, what happened to this girl, he's going to pound it and stay on that as hard and as long as he can. That's why we talked earlier about the words of your mouth. Wow. Change the way you speak about it and say, you know what? Wow. So I didn't speak too good that time. I'll speak good next time.
Yeah, but the thing is, when people are looking at you, I get it, and they're snickering, and kids could be cruel, and they don't care. They don't see, they just look at you as a jerk, and they just laughing at you and everything, and I get it. And if you have kids that are suffering right now from any anxiety, I'm telling you, you need to stick with this. You need to stick with it good and listen and get God's way to show you how you can help your child, because these kids are inundated and it's hitting them everywhere, and the devil has access to them because he's trying to get you, the Christian parent. You know, and so if he can't get you, and we've had our struggles with things too with our kids, if he can't get to you, he will certainly try to get to your kid. And it's easy to do. If
the devil can't get to you, he'll attack the weak around you. And then he tries to take you down through these others. But that's really a different subject now.
Well, you know, and our kids are not grounded in the Word.
Right.
They don't know. And you might not know what the Bible says about anxiety, but the Bible talks a lot about anxiety, about fear, about anxious feelings, about stress. It really does. And we're going to go over all of that with you, and we're going to continue this in our next teaching on this social anxiety, because this is major. This is major. Everyone cares what everybody else thinks, or very few don't. Let me put it that way. And like Al always says, you know, I want to be liked. You know, I don't want people to not like me, but I'm not going to let it control me if they don't.
Right. If you don't want to like me, that's fine, but I'm just going on with my life.
Right, and I'm not going to get, you know,
and you let them control you.
Right, and that's what that is, and it's pretty sad. But, you know, we're not here to condemn you. We're not here to hurt you. We're not here to bring shame to you. In fact, God does not even cover our shame. He washes it away. There is no reason to be ashamed of you feeling anxious or stressful, and you might have a very, very, very good reason to feel anxious about something. And we all go through it. And we all think our reasons are good, and some of them are very good, but it's a destructive emotion that can really shut you down and keep you from fulfilling God's plan for your life. And that's what Al and I want to get through to you in these next week or two. So I have a book called Get Rid of That Anxiety with God Right by Your Side. And you want to go to victorylifeministries.org. All that we talked about today and we'll be speaking of is in this book. Listen, our books are simple. Our books are easy. Right, Al? People love our books because a fifth grader can read the book and understand it. And that's what we want. We want simplicity. If you can't understand what I'm writing, then I don't even want you to buy the book, but you will be able to. It's in its simplest form. It really is.
You know, some people write books because they're trying to impress you with how educated or how smart they are.
Right.
I'm writing this book to help you get this information.
Exactly.
And the simpler, the better. It's easy to understand.
Exactly. And that's what we do. We make sure we do our books that way. We make sure on purpose. And so it's called Get Rid of That Anxiety with God Right by Your Side. So you can get this today at victorylifeministries.org. Thanks for joining us. And if you'd like to become a partner or give a one-time donation, you can also do that at victorylifeministries.org. We hope that you enjoyed the show today. And remember, victory is always yours through Jesus Christ. We'll see you next time. Is your life full of fear, worry, and stress? Does anxiety prevent you from enjoying normal daily activities? Do you panic for no apparent reason? Do you live in the what-ifs of the future? Are you up at night rehearsing all of your problems? Anxiety is a serious disorder that affects millions of people around the world. Those who seek medical help are usually given tools to manage their anxiety. But rather than coping, you can actually be free from this harmful emotion. In my book, Get Rid of That Anxiety, I share truths from God's Word that will put you on the path to victory over anxiety. And you won't be alone. God will be right by your side. Get ready to be free from anxiety and to live in the peace of God, the peace He died to give you. It's yours. Remember John 8:32, you shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. So go to victorylifeministries.org today and get your copy of Get Rid of That Anxiety.
Victory Life Ministries was founded to help you connect, grow, and flourish in a relationship with Jesus. Al and Angie Buhrke are committed to teaching the body of Christ how to walk in strength, in boldness, in love. Connect with us online today at victorylifeministries.org. You'll find the encouragement, inspiration, and resources you need to stand in victory each and every day. Join in on a growing community of believers that are partnering to bring these messages all over the world. With your help, we can make a change. We can shift the atmosphere. Live your best life. Live an effective life, full of faith, hope, and vision. Live life above your circumstance.